couple of years ago when I made more of a firm decision to be like, yes, I can still do this, and let me honor the past, and that's got me to where I am. I actually need to make that shift in myself to be like, hang on, this is who I am. Yes, I can still do that if I want, but this is now empowering me to go forward and those connections. And I went through like a week of reintroducing myself to everyone I'd worked with as a performer to be like, hey, I'm not coming to your audition. However, do you need someone to work your red carpet? Do you need someone to help cover live socials like your press night? And I think it was then reintroducing myself to the people I had, but with that new kind of that lens of being like, this is who I am now, and I'm still of value to you.
That moment of consciously rebranding yourself to the very people who you know best is such a powerful and courageous step. My guest this episode is Jamie Boddy, entertainment journalist and host of the Business of Show Business podcast. His story of pivoting from a successful performing career into marketing and journalism is packed with lessons for any freelancer, founder or professional navigating a change. We get into how you can leverage your past experiences to your advantage and the non-negotiables of building a personal brand that's authentic to you. So let's meet Jamie and get into it. Let's talk about the performer freelance dilemma, because I think that is something that will connect with a lot of our audience.
Yeah.
You had this performance career and you were a performer, and it's a really competitive industry, and something shifted in there that made you want to move away. So what happened? What drove the change?
I think for me, I was very fortunate. I worked hard, so I eventually got to tick off a lot of jobs that I wanted to do, those bucket list moments, and travel, fabulous. But it was getting to a point when I kind of thought, oh, not that there's not loyalty, because you would have directors, choreographers, producers that would rebook you, but there was no necessarily clear trajectory of, oh, if I stay in it this many years, I'll get this much income, or this will open up these doors and things like that. So I think the older I got, I started to be like, right, okay, what's this work-life balance that I hear people talk about? Or how do I scratch the itch of other things I want to do? I don't just want to have all my eggs in one basket. And I had been traveling and working away for like 5 years. So when I come back to London, that was when I was like, okay, let me slowly start kind of exploring other avenues as well, while still kind of being in it. So I think for me, it was after a couple of years, you start thinking, right, okay, what is that next step? How do I get that progression? Because industry is phenomenal, but then you're auditioning with people that are 5 years younger than you, 10 years younger sometimes, and that's fine. The industry has to evolve, but you're then getting the same money. And then you think, oh, I did this job 4 years ago, but with inflation, the money's not gone up. And I know that's not always a guarantee in every job. However, in a non-creative job, there may be a rough blueprint that you are to follow or that you think exists. But in the arts, it doesn't, because that choreographer stops working, or there's new people coming in. So yeah, I think it took about 5 or 6 years in. I was like, right, how else do I diversify my skill set and make an income?
So was it that you felt that you'd done what you came to do, or that you were looking at it and it just felt more uncertain and precarious, and that was what was driving you looking at other options?
I think it was a little bit of both. And I think as a performer and a freelancer, you get good at starting over again. You do a great job, and then the next day you're like, right, I've got to apply to jobs. I've got to submit myself to castings. I need to let my agent know I'm around. And I remember I'd done quite a prestigious TV job abroad, and I had come back, and the very next day I had an audition. So I'd been away for like 2 months with dream job, live TV, loved it. And the very next day I had an audition. I thought, isn't that amazing? I've just done this epic job, and the next day I've got an audition. And the first thing is someone saw me and was like, oh, you've just finished this other show, like what's next? And it really kind of brought me down to earth to be like, oh, I can't even enjoy that I've just done this. So I think it was kind of a dual pronged of me being like, oh, I've ticked a lot of things that I found fulfilling. But then it was also a bit like, oh, hang on a minute, like what is next? Or how do I make a career out of this?
Yeah, it's interesting that I think that's a very common response, isn't it? Where people kind of jump straight onto like, what's the next thing for you? I think it's interesting what you're saying about how you've got other performers coming through as well and pushing you on behind you. And I think a lot of founders, a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and creative people feel that they constantly have to prove themselves. And maybe that's something that you still do I know I do.
Yeah.
You know, you've always got to maintain a standard, but I'm interested to hear your take on that, because I'm guessing it's something that you had to do while you were in your performing career,
Yeah.
and you're a freelance, so it's still something you'll have to do. Does it feel different between those two?
Yeah, I think what's the funniest thing is when you're young and in any sector, you're like, oh, the doors aren't open because I'm young and I'm new and I don't have experience. And then when you've gone through that 5 or 6 years of like building a name, you then also think, oh, I'm not getting opportunities because I'm not new and young. And it's so funny because I think everyone who stays in an industry for more than say 10 years, you kind of feel both extremes of it. And now that I kind of transitioned through arts marketing and entertainment journalism, what I found quite weirdly empowering was like not a full sense of confidence, but as a performer, Jamie, I was well established. I've been in the industry I still occasionally perform, but in the industry at this point for like 15 years. So if I made a mistake at an audition, I'd be in my head a lot more. But when I transferred and went through arts marketing and journalism, it was like, hi, I'm Jamie, I'm a journalist. And everyone was like, oh, you are? Like there was almost like people didn't know me in that field yet, but I was qualified, I was getting experience. So I just kind of came in at that level and was like, this is who I am. Don't get me wrong, there were still times when I'd had 15 years performing where someone had 15 years journalism experience. So there was still barriers. But what I found was transitioning career, especially in my like early 30s, there was almost like that sense of confidence to be like, yeah, I am new, but I'm already established. Where I think when you are, especially in your 20s, you are kind of a lot more like, you think you're fighting for the scraps a lot more. So I think, yes, there's definitely parallels, but I think maybe if you are a career changer, so anyone listening who has changed career, actually you've got so much worth and lived experience that actually makes you valuable. It's just learning how to kind of like package that or kind of own it, which is quite scary when you've got to be like, oh, I have to be confident.
Do you think you need to make an identity shift in your own mind there? Because I know that it's a classic thing where someone's been in a career for a long time and they can't really get an objective view of what they have to offer outside their current career. And in my mind, because I've done career changes, there's a process of rebranding yourself and gaining a new identity in your own mind and really feeling confident and comfortable with that.
Yeah, 100%. I think for a while, I kind of tried to have them parallel and they would go forward. I would be like, I am a performer, but I also do arts marketing and journalism, because when I went to full-time marketing, it was through an internship, asked questions, got the job, used all my annual leave to keep performing. After several years, went back to school to retrain as a journalist. So I always kept my foot dabbled in, but I think it got to a point when I was almost diluting my brand, because I was like, I can do a little bit of everything. And people are like, what do you do? So I think a couple of years ago when I made more of a firm decision to be like, yes, I can still do this and let me honor the past. And that's got me to where I am. I actually need to make that shift in myself to be like, hang on, this is who I am. Yes, I can still do that if I want, but this is now empowering me to go forward and those connections. And I went through like a week of reintroducing myself to everyone I'd worked with as a performer to be like, hey, I'm not coming to your audition. However, do you need someone to work your red carpet? Do you need someone to help cover live socials at your press night? And I think it was then reintroducing myself to the people I had, but with that new kind of that lens of being like, this is who I am now, and I'm still of value to you. Because that's another thing, isn't it? When you're in your circles, when you get out that orbit, you're almost not as valued to that person. Not because they're malicious, but you're not traveling in the same circles. I wasn't seeing them at auditions or castings. And it's almost like, oh, where's he been? Where now I'm like, hey, you're still going to see me at events, but on the other side. And I think that's the same if you are changing from anything, from journalism to marketing to something completely out there. It's almost look at the network you've already got and how your new brand and skills match, as opposed to thinking, let me get the dream client straight away. Because actually there's probably people in your circle that will pay you for those skills.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like that was a really key moment, that moment where you were rebranding yourself with all of the people that you'd already had a career with and around.
Yeah. And I think there was a time, and I can remember it so clearly, there was a press junket for Dirty Dancing the Musical. And I never booked the show, but I had in previous years got somewhat far along the casting process. And I remember going to a press junket for it, and it was for the touring production. It was at the Wimbledon Theatre, and they were like, as a treat, we're going to get all the journalists to like learn a bit of the routine. And I remember thinking, oh, I know this routine, and I really like dumbed it down a bit because I was like, oh, they don't need to know I'm a journalist. Like I was a dancer, sorry. So I just kind of did it a bit, and then they were joking like, oh, you've got moves, and I was like, ha. And then I was like, I bet you can't do this, and I thought, I bet I can. And I did it. But in that moment, people were like, what? Like, and then for a while, there were certain PRs that knew me as like a dancing journalist. Because there was times when I was like, oh, these skills really align. So it was kind of understanding when I need to separate those skills to be like, you don't need to know that I was a performer. You just need to know I'm a journalist, arts marketer. And then there's times when I'm like, hey, I'm a journalist. However, I've got over 15 years as a performer. So I know what it's like in a rehearsal room. I know what it's like to go to an open audition. I can ask questions that another journalist might not think to ask because they just don't know. They don't have that lived experience.
Yeah. And so how do you approach that now, all of the different parts of brand Jamie Body? Is it all just kind of piled into one basket, or do you have any separation between the different, because you're a journalist, you do coaching as well, right? Some coaching stroke teaching type work.
Yeah, and that's still very much in the realm of entertainment. So what I would say my strands are predominantly now is I do freelance arts marketing, because I worked in marketing for West End musicals for years, and then entertainment journalism. And then I kind of do this hybrid coaching where I have a lecture at performing arts universities on personal branding and pitching yourself, or I work with up and coming people in the arts sector to kind of like, right, let's work on your media training. Let's look at how to unpack your brand on social media. So I think for the longest time, I tried to keep every offshoot separate. And as I said, there is a time when there's value in that because it dilutes your product if you are and you're reeling off too much. And in that situation, you've not read the room, you've not read what they want. But it got to a point when I thought, hang on a minute. Now I think I'm established enough in all my offshoots to like bring them under one umbrella. And I'm no longer necessarily Jamie the performer, but you're getting the charisma, you're getting the adaptability, you're getting the go-to attitude from performer Jamie, but you're getting the strategic mind from someone who's marketed West End musicals. You're getting the person with the like eye from like writing exclusive stories. So I kind of think now I very much lean into all aspects of who I am. And in my brand now, entertainment is obviously a huge segment of that. So when it comes to content putting out there, I'm like, is it entertaining? Is it me at an entertainment event? So like entertainment as an umbrella word kind of really helps unpack my brand. So I don't just have to think I am just this anymore. It's like I'm this with a little dash of this.
Yeah. So Jamie Body, the kind of entertainment Swiss Army knife is kind of about which tool do you unfold for the specific audience or situation.
Yeah, completely. And I'm trying to get better because I know there are some times when clients just won't buy into my offering, like anyone, whether you're trying to buy a different phone or buy different clothes. People, if you're adamant you love one product, you're not going to jump ship just like that. Same as a performer. There were certain casting directors, producers that I worked with loads, and some that no matter how much I got in the room, it's never gelled. So I'm still learning times, and I'm thinking, actually, these are the skills that I need to have. Oh, I should have actually mentioned this or led with this. So it's still an evolving game. But yeah, I think for me, it's understanding my value and my worth now and thinking it's okay if I don't get that job. Like, let me find the person that's buying my skills. And I think that was early on as a performer. And partly why I do what I do now is because I realized like, these are the skills I have or the jobs I want to do and enjoy. Why am I auditioning for these jobs and stressing over that? And after a couple of times auditioning for that casting director, looking at the data, being like, they don't like me for whatever reason. Do I ever want to change what my offering is so they employ me? Or all these people over here are hiring me for the skills I have. Let me just own that. Let me sit in that and actually earn more money instead of kind of stressing myself out.
It's so important that, and so hard. I think particularly early career or early career change, when you can still be figuring out a bit what it is that you want and what you're really good at and what really activates you.
Yeah.
But gosh, it's tough, isn't it? It's a tough one.
Yeah, it really is. And I think sometimes, especially now in the current generation, it's being an entrepreneur is actually kind of, it's a spoken about thing, and everyone wants to kind of have their own business, but it's hard. And actually sometimes a hobby should just be a hobby, and sometimes a hobby can be a business. Or just because you've got an idea and you love it, is there a reason that's not already in the market? Does no one actually want it? Or if it's not in the market and people do want it, how do you really sell it to them? And yeah, it takes a long time. And I think you're not going to know when you first graduate university, whatever it is you're studying, you're not going to know. But it's again, trying to learn, I think, and trying, like, even now when I pitch as a journalist or an arts marketer, I have kind of like a spreadsheet of my success of who I emailed, when I emailed them, what was in it. Did I get a reply? Did I not get a reply? Did I get a reply? And the next stage, so I can kind of start looking at the data. And I think we as humans, we hate rejection, or it's something to be fearful. Maybe that's the performer side of me coming out when you would get no's or silence
Silence
much.
is the worst, isn't it?
Yeah, and
that's the worst.
It is, and it happens. And now that I've flipped to the other
worst.
side, you must get your time again when you're pitching for new clients or whatnot, and it's exhausting sometimes.
I think that's a really interesting one. There's a sort of, a sales concept of just give me a yes, give me a no, but everything in the middle just is twisting me inside out. Thanks very much. It just consumes a lot of energy. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm interested to know, Jamie, about how you then approach your social media channels and your personal branding on the channels that you use when you have these different elements of your offer, and to reconcile maybe in a single channel, or do you maybe take a different approach?
I think for me, and this is something I actually say to everyone now, and no matter what, because I work with clients that are in on their marketing, that are in hospitality, that are in arts, being a performer, we're very much from show versus tell. It's like, I'm going to walk in this room and I'm going to show you how good I am. And if you want it, you're buying it. If you don't, I'm cut. We're where the rest of the world, you have to write how good you are. And it's quite hard. So I think that's one thing that's done me a favor. And especially now in the fact that social media is growing so much, everyone needs a visual presence, don't they? And they need that visual brand to match that in person. It needs to be harmonious. You don't want an online presence that's high edited, no mistakes. And in real life, you turn up late. You're always putting your foot in your mouth, that's allowed. If that's your brand, own it online. So I think in the evolution of social media, it used to be a lot easier when there was less channels, and it would be on my Instagram grid, for every 5th post, it's going to cut this pillar of content. And obviously marketing's changed. Social media has changed. There's so many different products on each platform, whether it's, you've got lives, you've got reels, you've got static, there's so much now. So it is an ever-evolving beast. And that's one thing I think people don't realize when you are trying to have a successful brand that translates online. It's almost that full-time job. And that's why companies have a social media department. So it's understanding what hours can I give? Because these typically, for most freelancers, they are unbillable hours, because you're creating your own content, you're editing it, writing your captions. Hopefully you're doing things like your keyword search, competitor analysis. So for me, I always try, I'm not always successful at it, but I always try and block out an X amount of hours a week that are my social hours. So then I'm right, this is when I'm doing this. And they are those unpaid hours, but it might have that return on investment and get me work. So I try and sprinkle through everything. And I think the great thing about social now is it's taken a shift where it's not all sell, look at me. Where I think there was definitely a phase when it went like that. And now it's become a bit more raw again, a bit more behind the scenes. We want to buy into the person. As we always say, marketing, people buy into products they know, like, and trust. So they need to know on your socials, oh, he looks really fun. And I think fun is a huge part of my brand. Whether I just think I am or other people. But that is a big part of who I am. And if that's not coming across, it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't resonate with the people I'm trying to attract. And then I do look at the data. I'm like, oh, this post didn't do as well. Why was that? And try and use it. So hopefully I answered your question. I went right around the houses there.
I'm slightly distracted thinking about how I do have, promise, a fun side to my personality, but I think I quite often just come over as quite serious. I'm not sure I have the same kind of natural effervescence that your energy is, if you like. Just a bit of a side thought.
You've got a nice calming thing. 'Cause obviously I came in today, I had a lot of flustering with my dog, but you were like very calming. So I think everyone, again, it's almost knowing what your superpowers and your strengths are like.
Yeah.
And I think for me, when I was sometimes on set, we'd be doing a night shoot. So you arrive at 5 p.m, hair and makeup, and you film to 5 a.m. But I was always kind of the guy that when it's like 3 a.m. and they're like, action, I'm like, come on everyone, like I would have that high energy. Don't get me wrong, there's sometimes that this energy may be too much for people and they're not buying it.
Yeah.
And that's hard to have learned that as well, when it's like, this is not the right place for me right now. But it's hard though, isn't it? But knowing your superpower. So for you, I'm like, oh, I want you, if I'm having a stressful day, or I want someone just to be calming and steer the ship already just from meeting you, probably I'm like, that's what you provide.
Thank you for that, because it's actually something that I consciously do. I think it's years of working in broadcast and broadcast journalism, and you have people coming into studios, maybe they're not very confident or experienced or whatever it may be, and just learning a little bit of reading and just kind of what is the thing that's going to take the edge off and help this person relax and give their best when we get into it. So yes, I'm going to notch with that one up.
Yes,
Thanks, Jamie.
no,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
You talked about getting work from social media. So tell me a bit more about that. Is it something that happens regularly? Are you able to sort of track and measure that?
I think, and now, especially over the last couple of years, when I've really tried to solidify my kind of entertainment brand of the business of show business, where I combine the marketing, the press side, and all that into pitching yourself and shows and so on. Since I've kind of solidified that now, I've definitely seen a higher return on investment, because I think when then someone, whether it's because of someone shared a story or post and they go over to my channel and they see it, that has yielded higher results. That being said, though, especially with back in the day when I first did my podcast, one particular episode, someone would say, I've just listened to this, like, can I book you for a consultation? So there are ways to track it. It's also hard with social because you can't always track it. Like someone may come across your socials, then they send you an email from your website. So sometimes it is hard. But yeah, I've definitely started to see now, or it's almost become, because I've tried to create this visual portfolio or micro site in itself that's almost quite like a resource to send to certain people, or if I DM people, especially in the arts sector, it's very reactive. And I've got jobs as a performer because I've seen someone post something on Instagram stories and I'm like, oh great, I've just seen this, sent them a professional DM, links to like my G Drive with everything in. But yeah, now on this side, it has helped me, even as a journalist, getting stories and stuff. I think if you've got a strong online brand, you can then be like a trusted source.
Interesting. So you're keeping as well, it sounds like a, what is it, swipe file, portfolio of material that you can just quickly send.
Yes, and I think that's one thing, especially freelance creatives, that we get an email and it's like, we need this and this, and they're like, I'll do it when I get home. And it's like, sometimes you do need to do that. But I think try and train yourself to have like that G Drive or Dropbox, whatever it is, of CV, pull quotes. If you're in marketing or your company's had press coverage, have that kind of one sheet with the pull quote, a star rating or a clickable link, have that on that one sheet with your CV, and then just send it off straight away, even if it's as a placeholder. Be like, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. I will get back to you promptly within 24 hours. However, in the meantime, here's my current portfolio, like have a clickable link. So I think having those assets can be really helpful.
Interesting, because I have to say, I now rely on things like LinkedIn and the business website to do those functions. So do you think there's still a kind of powerful place for those what are kind of fixed assets?
Yes, and I think, again, there's probably a time when someone doesn't want them and they're like, I've asked you this, and this, and you've sent me this. So I think it's, again, reading the room, really reading what they want, because LinkedIn is a fabulous resource, isn't it? It's got most things on. Yeah. But I think maybe coming from more of a visual background as a performer, I just feel happier in myself, as long as it's warranted, sending like this and this and this, because I'm like, this really gets my personality across. It's up to you. You might not have time to read or watch it, but for my sanity, all I know is that I've given control the controllables. I can't control that you want me. However, I can control that I've sent you everything I can, but made it as digestible as possible. I'm not saying like send a 6-paragraph email and like 6 large fold. Like don't. Try and obviously make it concise.
No one will read it.
No, exactly. Especially my friends who work in casting and stuff now. They're like, I need two paragraphs, clickable links, maybe your headshot in your email signature. So I think it's having those assets, but understanding when they are valuable or maybe when they're more of a hindrance.
Yeah. you've talked about getting your personality across, and you've mentioned your podcast, and that's where I'm seeing a convergence.
Yes.
Right. So tell us about the business of show business.
Yeah, and I think it came about because I had kind of not hung up my performing shoes, but I was working heavily in arts marketing, and then I retrained as a journalist. So I was very much like I'd been in shows to marketing shows to then covering press of shows, and there was things I was learning. I was like, oh, why aren't performers doing this? Like, why don't performers know how to write a concise email? Because again, show versus tell. We're like, my agent's got me audition, blah, blah, blah. Let me show you how good I am. It's like, but you need to get in the room first. What's that rapport you have with an agent? What's that rapport with a casting director? If they Google your name, what's coming up? Is it that video from when you were like 15 at a dance competition doing the ugly bag ball and you're now like 25? Like, what is it? So I started learning all these things thinking, hey, like, we should do this as freelance actors, creatives, even freelance photographers, PTs, all these skills
What's a PT?
Oh, I'm a personal trainer, sorry. Like, like they don't necessarily know how to market themselves. They are good at what they do, but there's no point being the best you in the world if no one knows who you are. So I started learning all this stuff and I thought, hang on a minute, people need to know this. And I remember I originally wrote my first workshop with the same title. I had a job, I was so lucky, I had a job in Barcelona, and I had 3 days off in between like the rehearsal day and the product launch day as a dancer. And I locked myself in the hotel room for pretty much those 3 days in Barcelona, of all places, just to bring forward all of my insight. And originally it would have been like a 6-hour workshop. It was wild. And I kept cutting it down. And then after my first workshop, I was like, yeah, there's something in this. And that's when I thought, let's start the podcast. People need to know, not like I know everything, because I think you should definitely learn from multiple people. Even also, you have to do something sometimes to realize it's not for me. But I was like, yeah, let's put this on a podcast, see what it's like. And I started getting little bites of people like sharing interest. Unfortunately, I launched the year of the pandemic, which was good in the fact, not good, pandemic was awful, sorry, but it was good in the fact of loads of people started launching podcasts. So I think the footfall or ears that were...
people started paying attention.
Yeah. So as much as there was so many people, that it was good, at least it was in the mix. And eventually once the pandemic... we kind of came out of that and my workflow changed. I did kind of parked it at the end of 2021. But then this year, I was paying all this time to keep hosting it. And I thought, okay, it's kind of not a waste of money, but it's still getting downloads, but I'm not pushing it. But my workshop's thriving. And as soon as I like took it down for like a day, loads of people were like, where's it gone? Or I was hoping there'd be more. And I was like, ah. So then I kind of like frantically thought, right, I need to relaunch this, but I need to like go hard. Because also back in 2020, 2021, podcasts weren't as cut up for social media. There was obviously probably a few people doing it, but they weren't really that big on socials. So yeah, so to answer your question.
It was still very much very audio first at that time, and audio has always struggled to find a way to convey on social. So
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then I would like everyone did. We did audio waves and we had quotes, and there was. You could do it, but now, over the last year, seeing how like on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, how sometimes a social media clip, that 1 minute clip will get so many more views than maybe the overall downloads of a podcast. And that's not just me, that's other people, other peers in the sector. They'll be like, yeah, that one clip got so many views and saves and comments, more so than what the entire episode will get. But that's now currency, isn't it?
Yes.
If that one piece of value is out there and that gets you brand awareness or that secures you income, it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah. Just for what it's worth, and this is a little bit of a diversion, I'd like your opinion on it. My experience, and something that I talk to all of Creative Kin's clients about, is the power of combining long form with short form. Because in my view, the long form is a terrific resource, and when the right moment is for somebody to more fully engage, that is a great resource.
Yeah.
And if you can derive those quick hit, they're almost like a sugar hit.
Yeah.
Right? You get a lot more volume, maybe not as deep engagement as the long form. What have you found in that respect?
No, very similar. The newest season of my podcast, which now includes video, is very new in the early stage. Episode 1's out, episode 2's coming out next week.
Yay.
So I prepped and filmed a lot, but yeah, it's coming out. So yeah, at the moment, I'm still finding the shorter form is just getting me more of that. It's shiny, isn't it? I've got certain people that are saying certain things, yes. But as you said, I definitely, even with before when my podcast was just audio, that because especially because when you find the right person that it really resonates with, it can be so, I don't want to say life changing, that sounds really dramatic, but it can be such a positive impact. I remember one of my episodes was audio only. I got 3 freelancers who all were now building a property portfolio. And I think one thing as a freelance creative, you're quite often under the impression that you're never going to own somewhere. So,
Yes.
and someone messaged me and said, because of that episode, I've listened and I've now bought a buy to rent up in, so not in London, up in Scotland, right next to a touring theatre venue. So it constantly needs someone, like people need somewhere to stay. And that for me was such an amazing moment because I thought, yes, you've listened to this full episode, you've taken everything in. So yes, I think long form definitely is worth it. It just might not be as shiny to people to start with in the fact of people's attention span and social media. But for the right people, I think long form can be really lucrative.
Yeah, yeah. What does it do for you and your and the Jamie Body brand that other parts of your content don't?
I think also, you may or may not agree, with podcasting, it's almost got a buffer in the fact of you'll have your loyal audience, but there's always going to potentially someone new that's going to get it who's never met you. So there's almost more of a confidence when promoting it, I find, or being on the podcast, where when it's your normal network, whether you're contacting them through your socials, your email list, whatever it is, you've kind of always got, they already know who you are. But the thing I love about podcasts is that they're just so shareable. It's something quite intimate about being in your ear. So I think it's a really good way. If anyone's thinking about audio content or video content, I think you should just do it. Like, as we were saying, marketing, like, go ugly first. So, like, just get it out there and then, like, work from it. It's just, I think, for me, it gives me that nice sense of, like, someone new may find this today. And then they find that back catalogue. It's like when you find a TV show you love and there's, like, 5 seasons and you're like, yes, you can go back and binge it.
Yeah. And so with the new season or the relaunch, I guess, because it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes.
With the relaunch, what do you want to get out of it? What's the goal?
The goal now that I'm pushing the business of show business brand more as an entity is kind of, I say brand awareness is the top of my list, as opposed to thinking I need X amount of clicks or income. For me, it's brand awareness. I do a lot of lecturing, as I said, at colleges. So now I've got that resources live again, that at the end of every session, I'm like, great, you love what you heard? Check this out. There's a lot more now. I did in previous seasons. I'm not sure if I do it now or not, but I was kind of saying, send in your questions. So as the seasons went on, I was getting questions from graduates and people in training being like, can you ask this from someone and what do I do? So I think for me, it's building brand awareness, building credibility, and then also on with my presenting stream, this is a great way for me now to be like, here's me interviewing or here's me talking to this West End star or this arts marketer. So it's another way to add to my portfolio, I think, of work.
Yeah, yeah. And can I nudge you back to the comment that you made about, how you come across in an email as opposed to almost in person on video? I mean, do you see specific value in that for yourself? I.e., what's the value of you showing Jamie on video in real time as opposed to Jamie in copying an email? Yeah,
no, definitely. And I think also part of this goes down to me, like, not every email's going to land. And that's again, going back to silence sometimes. You don't hear. And the good thing is now you can get like tracking software, so if someone's opened it, things like that. But it's hard sometimes to break through that inbox when you, especially as a journalist, when you're pitching a story as a freelancer, that editor could be getting hundreds of emails. I had a PR person on my podcast and she was saying she gets 400 emails a day and she's a PR specialist. So if you're trying to cut through that, it's really hard. So I think for me, video is quite like, you're going to see within 10 seconds if I'm your cup of tea. You'll hopefully see my energy. You'll see that I'm a little bit goofy or kooky, but can be serious if needed. But yeah, you're going to see that. And that's what I've been told is kind of my USP. So I think there has been times definitely when I've emailed people and I've not had a reply, and then I've met them at an event and they're like, oh my God, like, I need to get you in. Like, I can't believe our paths haven't crossed. And sometimes I'm like, should I tell them I've emailed them? And yes, there's obviously data from that. It's like, I need to make my email better for that person to read it. But also it's understanding that, hey, some things are out of my control. If they have had 400 emails that day, it could be the subject line wasn't right. It could be that my first opening line or my hook wasn't strong enough, whatever it is. But in person, again, you might see me and be like, oh, not for
I
me.
think if you're getting 400 emails a day, they could have read it, and an hour later, it's completely gone out of their mind, frankly, just in terms of volume. Yeah, volume. Personal branding, Jamie. So this is something that has come up with so many of my guests on the Content Mavericks Club, and it's a very live, current trend. I mean, is it maybe I could say a trend because things do change, but it seems like it's one that's here to stay. And so how do you approach your personal brand? Because the other word that comes up so much is authenticity, where it's almost become inauthentic because it's a kind of trend word that has lost a bit of meaning. But tell me how you approach it.
I think that's a really good point when it is almost like trendy. But I think the reason why it is so popular and here to stay is that it's digestible. Everyone kind of gets it. Where like, I remember like 2016 when I first started working in social and content, and you say content, everyone's like, what do you mean by content? Like, because it's so, well now that's obviously a lot more popular, but I think personal brand, most people will get that, whether you're in marketing or not. So that's why I think it's here to stay. Authenticity, it's huge. And I think coming from the performance world of your in-person and online have to match so well, because your marketing packet, your CV, how you show up online, there's certain databases as a performer like Spotlight and whatnot that can get you in the room. But if you don't look like your highly airbrushed photos, if you don't dance as well as you do in your show reel, if your email's really polite but then you're being really nasty at the side of the edition, like there's a huge disconnect there. So I think that's something that's really translated with me when I've gone into different areas to be like, right, the online and in-person need to match so much, because everyone will get a first job, but not everyone will get a second job, especially in the arts. Like if you get known for not being a nice person, for not turning up on time, for not retaining choreography and lines, that the industry's small, it goes round and you don't get that second job. So I think that's been really helpful now working as a arts marketer and journalist. So I think, being authentic is really important. Like if you wouldn't say it in person, would you say it online?
So does that mean I should be rude in my emails?
No, but that's
just go straight out front with it.
But it's true, because I think as some comedians, for instance, self-deprecating humour or being cheeky is part of their brand. So you would kind of expect that in their email. But like, with me, what I've learned is I'm very like energetic and bubbly. Yes, I will send a professional email, but if I was like, dearest mademoiselle, please, like, it's just such a disconnect. That doesn't mean I shouldn't send a professional email that is, dear, whoever, insert name, I've had so much great, blah, blah, blah. Still be professional, but put your brand in it. And I think, again, that's part of that disconnect. And it's figuring out, and the thing is your brand will always change, but it's that lens you can look through to be like, should I post that on social? Does it align with my brand? Yay or nay? Am I dressing appropriately for my brand? There's so many things that I think, if you don't know what your personal brand is, you've got an identity already. And there's that saying that always goes around in marketing, like your personal brand is what someone says about you when you leave the room. People are talking about you regardless of how you are getting ahead of it. So it's actually like, right, let me try and get ahead of that now. Let me curate it a bit to be like, are they hopefully saying the things I want them to say? Are they saying that I'm bubbly and energetic? Are they saying that I'm a hard worker? Or are they saying that, oh, that person's chaotic, or that person's really miserable, or like, it's actually, what is that? So if you think you don't have a brand, you definitely do.
Yes.
Maybe ask someone like, hey, like, be nice, but what do you say about me when I leave the room? Or what am I known for? Because actually it's like everyone should start kind of thinking about themselves as that brand. But it
is quite scary when you think about it in those terms, because I'm sort of suddenly thinking of all the moments where I'm, a bit grumpy or whatever it may be, which I hope I manage adequately as a experienced professional. But.
Well, and the thing is, you're not a robot. No one expects you to be at your optimum all the time. That would also lead to burnout, and that would be exhausting. So, but I think it's understanding like, oh, this is in my wheelhouse, or this resonates. Same when you're applying for jobs, and are you applying for that job because you really want it, or are you applying for it because you think the sector thinks you should do it. Like, does it align with your brand and your values? Like, what are they?
Yeah.
So I think it's like having that list maybe of what does resonate for you can help steer your career choices and what you post on content. 'Cause I think that's the main disconnect for people. It's like, oh, I'm great at this, or I love this, but how do I actually articulate that now?
Or show rather than tell when you get the
Exactly.
opportunity. You've spoken, Jamie, about pitching. And I think that this is a really interesting topic to dive into with you, particularly for people who, this may be a stereotype, but I'm going to go for it anyway.
for it.
People from creative careers, they're very focused on their creative output, if you like, what they actually do as a creative, rather than the presentation that, as you described it, get in the room,
Yeah.
right? The pitch. And I know that you've worked with creatives on this kind of thing. So what are the most common things that you find yourself seeing and talking to creatives about when it comes to pitching themselves?
And I think it is exhausting when you have to tailor pitches to every different job and project. And we always say, like, when you have to like curate your CV for each job, that is exhausting, but you do need to kind of lean into that and think, right, although I might not completely change the layout of my CV, like, is my opening paragraph or is my email that I'm sending really specific to them? Like, look at the keywords that are in that job spec. Does that translate on your CV? Do you have any clickable links that kind of match or give you that work experience, show the value? Don't just think, oh, I have experience doing social media. Like, reply and say, as a social media lead on this project, click this link to see live coverage at this event, showing that transformation. So when you're pitching yourself, it's kind of look for those keywords first of all, and what can you relate to that straight away without even thinking, like, oh yeah, I've got this and this under my belt.
Yeah.
Then you dive a bit deeper. So I think kind of, as in that journalism, we always say about like that reverse triangle of like, you want all the good stuff kind of quite early on. So then if they don't stay with it, they've read everything they need. But if they do stay with it, there's still a few little things. It's kind of like that. I think when you pitch yourself, it's like, what am I selling? Who's buying what I'm selling? And are those skills quite clear? And it's hard, but I think I always, like, once a year do like a little brand audit of myself. Sometimes do it with a glass of wine, it's fine. But like, I look at all my materials as a presenter, my portfolio, have I got a new testimonial? And I kind of update it. And I think the biggest thing is like, I think we hear it all the time, but like, rejection is redirection. But I think it's trying to understand that sometimes it's a gut punch if you don't get a job. Sit in that, give yourself a window to dwell, but then be like, right, what can I learn from this about that pitch? Was my hook not strong enough? Did I not have like clickable links? Oh, this pitch did really well. Why? Oh, it's because I started off with like a quote from like a mentor who's known in that sector. Yeah. So I think, when it comes to pitching yourself, first of all, look at what you have and your skills and the job you want. Where are those skills lining up? If I always give this analogy that if you're not a strong singer and your dream musical, the first round is a sing-only round, are you going to get in your head if you go to that? Or do you want to like build up consistently with singing lessons so when that audition comes up, singing's higher up on your skill set? If not, maybe you want to invest your time in something else while you perfect your singing, sorry. So I think it's, trying to be aerial view of kind of your skill set and looking at where you want to go with your pitch and then thinking, right, these need to be the top 5 things or these don't.
Yeah, I think that point you made about recovering from rejection is so important because it will absolutely happen a lot. It's going to happen. It's going to happen over and over again. And I think that applies across the board with careers. Yeah. I think I'm a sort of 24-hour recovery.
Okay, that's good.
If I get a rejection, I can feel absolutely terrible for the rest of the day. And then I know that go to bed, sleep. When I wake up in the morning, it'll be gone, and I'll be thinking, okay, how do I learn from it? How do I analyze what's happened? Get feedback as much as you possibly can, which I think is getting harder these days, actually. But just push at that. That's my bit of advice for this episode.
It's so true because I think that's the thing. If you don't know what it could be that your pitch is perfect, but it's already someone internal to the company or back in the arts, someone is staying on from the previous cast. But we've all been in there marketing, like your pitch as an external, or you go for a job and then you find out the junior in that role internally in the company has been bumped up. So your pitch could have been phenomenal. But yeah, if you can get any form of data or feedback, do it. Like it could even be the fact of, I sent that first thing on a Monday and I found out from that editor they prefer their pitches on a Tuesday because their print deadlines are Thursday. It's just, even that can be some form of data that can help you going forward with that client.
And for what it's worth, I've had feedback in my career where I've gone for the feedback and they just said, you weren't even close. You just weren't even close. And it can really feel brutal at the time, but you need to know. Yeah. You need to know so that you can make a good decision about what you do next.
Exactly. And going back to knowing what your personal brand is, that will help you make those decisions. Yeah, it doesn't soften the blow. It absolutely sucks when you don't get the job you want and you've spent hours writing a cover letter, or sometimes you probably find this in marketing and content creation, you've got to pitch 3 ideas and create something and you send it and you don't get it, or you see remarkably one of your ideas has been picked up and you're like,
that one.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
it doesn't not suck, but at least try and think, right, what can I learn from this? It might be the fact you don't want to work with that person again.
So for all of us sort of solo operators, solo entrepreneurs, freelancers who are excruciatingly time poor, and who want to build our personal brand and authority with our content, what are the non-negotiables? What are the first lines of do this, don't do that for you? Yeah,
and I think your brand and your offerings will always diversify or grow. So it's one of those things you always kind of have to have one eye always on. For me, I think if I'm just trying to help someone out or my own personal brands, is it, first of all, do I feel comfortable putting that on social? Going back to that authenticity. Like, so with a brand, we all, especially if you're in the arts, you need to be online. It's like Marmite, whether you love it or hate it, you need to be on social media. So it could be, let's just find one platform. I'm going to absolutely rock that one for now. It could be that I dip my toe in because I start following people I want to work with. Then I start liking posts. I start commenting. So I think slow and steady is better than like not at all, because the longer you wait, the more paralyzed. That the analogy I always give is like, if I was to hold a bottle of water out to start with, it'd be fine, but at the end of this interview I'd be like shaking and it'd be down here because like the weight of it grows and grows. So I think do sooner rather than later, and I think that's one of the fears we have is like, as soon as I say I'm a business or I'm a personal brand, that's it. Like, you can't unsay it. But I think just get out there. That'd be my first non-negotiable, is just as soon as you've got an idea or something, send that email or do a post and like learn from it. And then I think authenticity, which again can be a bit of a woo-woo word, but I think it's so true, because if you don't feel okay saying that, you're going to have that resistance, and that resistance is going to build. So I think just try and be as authentic online as possible. Even if you're like, hey, I'm new on this platform, don't know what this button does, like give me a follow. Like, that's more endearing than someone trying to be like a chat GTP of like, this is what I meant to say on here.
Yes, yeah, interesting. It made me think, actually, before I started Creative Kin, I'd worked as a BBC journalist for a long time. And, for a long time, I would think, what are my ex-colleagues going to think if they see this output? And it was paralyzing. And it really surprised me, because I don't think of myself as somebody who worries about that at all, but it's a real thing.
Yeah, I think, that paralysis of comparison, and again, maybe being back to a performer when you literally have to look in the mirror every day and be like, my leg's not as high as that person, or you hear if you've cracked on that note, and that's debilitating. But I think someone said to me once, like, what are you saying yes to now? That means you're saying no to later down the line. So if I'm saying yes to fear now, I'm saying no to jobs I really want down the line. Yeah. And that really struck with me, because even if I say yes to a job, that might mean I'm saying no to a really good job later down the line, because I've overloaded myself because I think I meant to take that job. But yeah, I think it is paralyzing when you think, oh, what are they going to think of me?
Yeah.
And it's hard, isn't it? Because in theory, sometimes your closest circle should be the most supportive, and they're not always. And that's not because they're mean people, but again, it's not in their orbit. They're like, oh, why is he doing that now? And actually, you're like, I'm doing it because I'm my own boss. I'm being creative. There's so many, the reasons you're doing it are worth it. But yeah, I think that's so hard.
And the other thing is that where you do get the feedback, it's overwhelmingly positive. Like, all of those fears are just
exactly.
So, Jamie, we're approaching the end. What we haven't talked about really, Jamie, is your professional trajectory. And this is going to come out of my mouth a little bit uncomfortably because this is a sort of like, where do you want to be in 5 years, Jamie? But, if you could project forward, I don't know, a year, maybe 2, what's the vision? What's the ideal situation for you
And
as you going forward?
yeah, it's so funny because if you asked me this last year, it'd probably be really different than what I've been thinking the last couple of months. This year, like, because my my lecturing at universities has increased, and I love that. Like, I don't think I'm someone who would be able to teach every day and necessarily find as much fulfillment, but going in for these guest modules on helping creatives diversify or understanding the business side and the questions I get, and I'm like, oh, I love that, because I'm like, I wish someone had helped me with that or put me in connections with someone. So I hope the Business of Show Business, both the podcast and the lecture, grow to a point, because I enjoy helping people. I think sometimes I loved performing, and it's not selfish, but it's like people used to clap me for a living, and the buzz I got for that was delightful. And I helped people escape and whatever, because they would watch the show and all that. But then I think the more I was performing, I was kind of like, oh, what value is this adding right now to like my life or other people's life, this little project? Or even if I'm working with certain clients that I'm like, this is your baby, but this is not my baby. So lately I'm like, you know what, I want to try and help people a lot more as I can and not just consume as much, but create more. So the plan hopefully is to grow that brand, the Business of Show Business, both the podcast and the lecturing and freelance consulting, while still doing my presenting and red carpet coverage. But that in itself, the landscape of that has changed. Like, because of influencers now and social media following, that's definitely become a big part of who's getting certain jobs. Don't get me wrong, there are some people out there who have gone down the influencers route and social content creators, and they are fabulous interviewers. They are so good. But there's a lot of people that aren't, because it's not their wheelhouse. The content they create at home that they can film 7 times and edit, great, but then being live and reactive on the red carpet is not as good. So I'm not saying, there should definitely be, some of those people have come up and they're amazing, and some people I'm like, oh, your brand is probably better suited over here. So I'd still love to grow my presenting, but I definitely know that I need to kind of maybe elevate my socials as well to a certain point to do that. So I think that's where I'd like to go. Yes, let's see.
Yeah, great. I've got a bunch of quick fire questions, which really I just want to have a bit of fun with. So what's the single biggest myth about building a personal brand you'd like to bust?
I think that you have to have this high budget or like loads and loads of photos and videos and all that. It's like you just need, like I said, this launch. Like, you're already a brand. So I think it's just like, it could be one social media channel. It could be that you start smashing out the emails and they're really good on brand. I just think it's just start. Because I think people think, oh God, I need to have this logo and this font and this wardrobe, and I need to have known these people already. And you don't. You just need to start.
If you could distill your main message about portfolio careers into a sentence, what would it be?
Into a sentence. It could be a very simple one, but I think variety is key. Even if you aren't a portfolio career, but you're in one job, find the variety in that to keep that buzz and that spark alive. But for me, portfolio careers, I think it's variety and flexibility, keep you on your toes.
For our audience, what's one thing, one action they could take this week, or maybe next, because we're recording on Friday, to improve their pitch?
Do a brand audit of yourself. Look at what you've already got out there, what's online. Look at what you've got before you start pitching again, because that one thing could be stopping you getting through the door. So don't just keep pitching and be like, right, let me do a quick stock take of my socials. Have I posted in a while? Do I have updated imagery and quotes? I think do an audit first.
And finally, what's the number one reason that somebody should tune into the Business of Show Business podcast now that it's relaunched?
Yes. Oh, I think if you want to be entertained, but you want to kind of peek behind the curtains with the showbiz world, but also learn some tips on maybe how to be creative, whether that's with your strategy or your content creating, I think that's the podcast for you.
Jamie, thanks very much. Real pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure was all mine. Thank you.
It was a lot of fun having Jamie in the Creative King studio. He's got such a smiley, effervescent energy. And his perspective on owning your career transition is really insightful. His point about making a conscious identity shift in your own mind really struck home with me, especially as my own business, Creative Kin, has moved its studio to a new home here at Woolwich Works and is shifting from straight production support to a more comprehensive strategic content marketing offer. And those developments have changed my perception of myself, the studio, and the business as a whole. I'm convinced that being fully comfortable in your own mind with the new persona you've taken on is a critical first step before you can successfully rebrand yourself to the outside world. Jamie also made a fantastic point when he said your past career isn't something to hide, but instead it's a unique asset that you can leverage to give you an authentic edge that nobody else has. We're each of us unique, each with our own journey, and that gives us a well of experience that we alone can draw on. And when it comes to building your personal brand on social media, the most important thing is to just start, be yourself, and learn from what works. That's it for this episode. Do go and find Jamie Body on his podcast, The Business of Show Business, and make sure you download your free cheat sheet for this episode. All the links are in the description. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Mavericks Club, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment or review. It really helps us grow the show and bring these valuable insights to more people. I'm Jason Caffrey. Thanks for joining me for the Content Mavericks Club. Until next time, goodbye.